A 72-year-old crossing guard in a faded orange vest reunites a family torn apart for 20 years. 3 marriage counselors, 2 family therapists, a renowned mediator, and countless lawyers have failed. The patriarch is dying, his 3 children haven't spoken in 2 decades, and a $500 million fortune hangs in the balance. Time is running out. What does this unlikely hero know that everyone else missed? Before we continue this incredible story, please hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video and comment below where you are watching from. Now let's see what happens next. The morning sun breaks over the rolling hills of Tuscany, casting golden light across the vineyards that stretch endlessly toward the horizon. It's early September, and the air carries that peculiar weight of late summer, thick with the scent of ripening grapes and the faint metallic tang of approaching autumn. In the heart of this postcard-perfect landscape sits Villa Monteverde, a 17th-century estate perched on a hilltop overlooking the valley below. The villa's weathered stone walls have witnessed generations of the Castellani family, but never have they contained such suffocating silence. Inside the master bedroom, Alessandro Castellani lies propped against embroidered pillows, his once powerful frame now diminished to fragile angles beneath crisp white sheets. At 87, the founder of Castellani Industries, a manufacturing empire worth $3 billion, is dying. The doctors have given him weeks, perhaps days. But Alessandro isn't afraid of death. He's terrified of dying alone, of leaving this world without seeing his 3 children one last time, without healing the wound that has festered for 20 years. That wound was carved on a rain-soaked evening in November 2005. A misunderstanding. A simple, terrible misunderstanding about their late mother's final wishes, about the division of a cherished family property in Portofino. Words were said. Accusations flew. Pride hardened into stone. By morning, the 3 Castellani siblings, Marco, 4-9, Giulia, 4-6, and Tommaso, 4-2, had fractured into separate orbits, each convinced the others had betrayed their mother's memory, each too wounded to reach out, each year of silence making reconciliation more impossible. Marco, the eldest, had moved to New York, building his own tech company from nothing, refusing a single euro from the family fortune. He hadn't spoken to his father or siblings since that night. His secretary fields every call from Italy with the same cold message. Mr. Castellani is unavailable. Giulia had stayed in Milan, throwing herself into humanitarian work, traveling to war zones and disaster areas, anywhere but home. She changed her number every year. The last 6 letters Alessandro sent were returned unopened. Tommaso had fled to Australia, working on cattle stations under a different name, cutting all ties to his former life. Private investigators had tracked him to Queensland, but he'd vanished before anyone could make contact. Now Alessandro lies dying, his enormous wealth meaningless without the family to share it with. The villa staff walks on tiptoe, their whispers echoing in the empty halls. Outside, the vineyards his great-grandfather planted continue their ancient cycle, indifferent to human suffering. Alessandro's personal assistant, Elena Rossi, has tried everything. Everything. She hired Dr. Francesca Bianchi, Italy's most celebrated family therapist, who flew in from Rome 3 months ago. Dr. Bianchi spent 6 weeks attempting to establish contact, crafting carefully worded letters, employing every psychological technique in her arsenal. Marco's lawyers sent cease-and-desist orders. Giulia's aid organization claimed she was unreachable in the Congo. Tommaso never responded. Dr. Bianchi left in tears, apologizing that even her 30 years of experience couldn't crack this particular wall. Elena then engaged the services of Martin Hoffmann, a German mediator who had successfully negotiated peace between warring business partners, feuding royal families, and hostile governments. Hoffmann's fee was €50,000 per week. He lasted 4 weeks before admitting defeat. The siblings have built identities around their estrangement, he explained. To reconcile would mean admitting they wasted 20 years. The human ego would rather die than admit such a mistake. In desperation, Elena contacted Sister Margaret O'Sullivan, a Catholic nun famous for reconciling families in conflict. Sister Margaret traveled from Dublin, spent 2 weeks in prayer and outreach, and made it further than anyone. She actually got Julia on the phone. The conversation lasted 4 minutes before Julia hung up, and Sister Margaret received a formal letter threatening legal action if any further contact was attempted. 5 more experts followed. A rabbi specializing in family reconciliation. A Buddhist monk who'd reunited hundreds of estranged relatives. A conflict resolution specialist who'd worked in Rwanda after the genocide. A team of psychologists from Stanford. A private investigator turned family finder who'd built a career on emotional reunions. Each brought their credentials, their methods, their confidence. Each left defeated. The cost has been staggering. Over €2 million spent on experts, investigators, travel, and legal fees. Elena has filled 17 binders with correspondence, proposals, and reports. She's conducted 43 phone calls with various intermediaries. She's pursued 6 to 7 different approaches. Nothing has worked. As summer fades, Alessandro's condition deteriorates. His cardiologist, Dr. Moretti, visits daily now, his expression growing graver with each examination. His heart is giving out, Dr. Moretti tells Elena privately. The physical condition is serious, yes, but I've seen patients in worse shape who rallied. Signor Castellani is dying of grief. I can treat the body, but not the broken heart. Elena watches Alessandro stare out the window at the vineyards, sees him trace the faces in old family photographs, hears him whisper his children's names in his sleep. She's watched this vital, commanding man, who once employed 12,000 people, who built an empire from a single workshop, reduced to this ghost haunting his own home. The sleepless nights have taken their toll on Elena too. She's lost 15 pounds. Dark circles shadow her eyes. Her hands shake when she's alone. Last Tuesday, she broke down in the villa's library, sobbing into her hands, the weight of failure crushing her chest. The housekeeper found her there at midnight, still crying, surrounded by scattered photos of the Castellani family from happier days. The staff whispers when they think Elena can't hear. It's impossible, they say. 20 years is too long. Pride that deep has roots like oak trees. No one can fix this. We'll lose Signor Alessandro without ever seeing those children again. As September slides toward October, even Elena begins to believe them. She's run out of experts to call, strategies to try, hope to summon. The impossible has proven itself truly impossible. On the morning of October 4th, she sits in her office staring at her computer screen, searching desperately for one more expert, one more possibility, one more miracle. The search results blur through her tears. Time is running out. 60 kilometers away in the small town of Montalcino, Rosa Benedetti stands at the same crosswalk she's manned for 43 years. It's 7:42 a.m., and the morning rush to school is in full swing. Rosa is 72 years old, built solid and short, with silver hair pulled back in a simple bun and a face mapped with wrinkles that crease deepest around her eyes, the mark of someone who's spent decades smiling. Her orange crossing guard vest has been washed so many times the reflective strips have faded to a dull gray. It hangs over a simple blue cardigan that's been darned at the elbows. Her shoes are sensible black flats, worn down at the heels but polished every morning. In her weathered hands, she holds a stop sign that's been repainted 3 times, its red surface now more pink than crimson. Rosa has lived her entire life within a 10-kilometer radius of this crosswalk. She occupies a tiny apartment above the bakery on Via Roma, one room with a hot plate, a narrow bed, and walls covered in photos of children. Not her children. Rosa never married, never had her own family. These are the children of Montalcino, spanning 4 decades. Children she's helped cross this street, watched grow up, seen become parents themselves, and now whose children she helps cross the same intersection. Her monthly pension is barely €700. She supplements it by mending clothes for neighbors and tending the church garden. On Sundays, she arrives at Mass an hour early to arrange the flowers, always wild ones she's gathered herself, because the church budget doesn't stretch to florists. Her possessions could fit in 2 suitcases. By any conventional measure, Rosa Benedetti's life is small. But this morning, Like every morning, Rosa stands at her post with the bearing of someone who knows their purpose. A red Fiat approaches, and Rosa steps into the crosswalk, raising her stop sign with calm authority. The car halts immediately. 3 children cross, the Moretti twins, Sofia and Luca, and their older sister Chiara. Buongiorno, Rosa, they chorus. Buongiorno, Tesori, Rosa replies, and as they pass, she touches each head gently. Luca, did you remember your geography project? The boy's eyes widen. He'd forgotten. Rosa laughs, a sound like wind chimes. I thought so. Tell Signora Bianchi that Rosa says you can bring it tomorrow. She'll understand. The children scurry across, and their mother, Francesca, waits on the other side, shaking her head with a smile. This is Rosa's gift, though she'd never call it that. She knows every child in this town. Not just their names, she knows their favorite subjects, their fears, their friendship troubles, their home situations. She knows which parents are struggling with money, which marriages are strained, which grandparents are sick. She knows because she pays attention, because she listens, because in 43 years of standing at this crosswalk, she's witnessed the intimate theater of daily life. At 8:15, when the school rush ends, Rosa doesn't leave her post. She stays, because this is when the elderly residents take their morning walks. Signor Benedetti, no relation, though she calls him cousin anyway, shuffles by with his walker. Rosa helps him navigate the curb, asks about his daughter in Siena, reminds him about his doctor's appointment on Thursday. By 9 o'clock, she's helped 16 children, 7 elderly residents, and 3 mothers with strollers cross safely. Now she walks to the elementary school, where she volunteers 3 days a week, reading to the younger children. She's not a trained educator. She left school at 14 to work in her father's shop, but the children clamor for her stories. Rosa doesn't read from books. She tells tales passed down through generations, folk stories with wisdom woven into their fabric like gold thread through fabric. Today, she tells the children about the old woman and the fountain. There was once a village dying of thirst, Rosa begins, her voice dropping to that theatrical whisper that makes 6-year-olds lean forward. The wealthy men dug deep wells. The engineers studied charts. The scientists tested the soil. But no water came. Then an old woman who gathered firewood said, "I know where the water is." The men laughed. "What could you know?" they asked. But the village was desperate. They followed her to a spot that looked like any other. "Dig here," she said. And when they dug, water erupted, enough for the whole village. "How did you know?" they asked. She said, "I've walked these hills for 70 years. I know where the moss grows greenest, where the birds drink in drought, where the earth stays cool on hot days. I pay attention." The children applaud, but they don't fully understand the lesson. That's fine. Rosa knows that wisdom often plants itself quietly, sprouting years later when needed. At noon, Rosa eats her lunch, bread and cheese brought from home, on the bench outside the church. Father Giuseppe joins her, as he has most days for 20 years. "Rosa," he says, "I have a problem. The Alberti family, the son and daughter haven't spoken in 5 years. Over their father's care. Both love him, both want what's best, but pride has them trapped. I've tried everything. Can you visit them?" Rosa nods slowly, thinking. What do they argue about? Who should make decisions about medical care? The son wants aggressive treatment. The daughter wants comfort and dignity. They've stopped talking entirely, communicate only through lawyers. Are they both coming to the father's birthday party next month? Father Giuseppe blinks. I don't know if there will be a party. They can't be in the same room. There will be a party, Rosa says firmly. You'll tell them their father's greatest birthday wishes to see them both. Not talking, just present. Can they refuse a dying man's birthday wish? But what good? They don't need to talk. They need to remember. Tell the son to bring the photo album from their childhood summer vacations. Tell the daughter to make their father's favorite cake, the one their mother used to make. Old memories create new bridges. When they are both there, looking at those photos, remembering their mother, tasting that cake, the anger will crack. Just a small crack. That's all you need. Father Giuseppe stares at her. That's Rosa, how do you? I pay attention, Giuseppe. I've watched families for 43 years. The same patterns, over and over. Distance doesn't come from hate. It comes from pain pretending to be hate. If you make them remember love, pain can admit it's just pain. And pain can heal. This is Rosa's secret genius. She has no degrees, no formal training in psychology or mediation or conflict resolution. What she has is 43 years of witnessing human nature at its most honest, at crosswalks, in morning routines, in the unguarded moments of daily life. She's seen hundreds of families, watched them fracture and heal, noted what works and what doesn't. She's observed that people fight hardest when they are hurting, that silence is usually fear wearing a mask, that the way back to each other always lies through shared memory. 3 weeks later, Father Giuseppe finds her at the crosswalk, tears streaming down his face. The party worked. They looked at those photos together. They started talking. Really talking. By the end of the night, they were crying, hugging, apologizing. Rosa, you saved that family. Rosa just smiles, waves her stop sign at an approaching car. They saved themselves. They just needed to remember who they were before the pain. That same afternoon, Elena Rossi sits in her car on the highway outside Montalcino, caught in an unexpected traffic jam. Construction has reduced 2 lanes to 1, and she's been sitting motionless for 20 minutes, staring at her phone, scrolling desperately through search results for family reconciliation experts Italy. She's cried so much the past 2 weeks her eyes feel scraped raw. Alessandro is fading fast. Dr. Moretti says it's a matter of days now, maybe hours. The siblings remain unreachable. Elena has failed. Through her window, she notices a crosswalk ahead and an elderly woman helping a group of school children cross. Even from this distance, Elena can see the woman's easy authority, the way children seem to gravitate toward her like planets to a sun. The woman laughs at something a little boy says, touches his shoulder, and the child beams up at her. Elena doesn't know why she keeps watching. Maybe because it's better than staring at her phone's litany of failures. Maybe because there's something hypnotic about this woman's calm competence in her small domain. But then she sees something that makes her sit up straighter. A car pulls up, and a woman gets out, clearly upset, gesturing frantically. Elena can't hear the conversation, but she watches the crossing guard put down her stop sign, take the woman's hands, speak to her quietly for several minutes. The woman's shoulders gradually relax. She nods, wipes her eyes, hugs the crossing guard, gets back in her car looking lighter. In 90 seconds, this elderly woman in a faded vest did what Elena's €2 million parade of experts couldn't, brought someone from desperation to hope. The traffic starts moving. Elena drives past the crosswalk, glancing at the crossing guard one more time. Something whispers in her mind, what if? It's a ridiculous thought. This woman is a crossing guard in a small town, probably never traveled beyond the region, certainly has no credentials in family therapy or mediation or conflict resolution. The idea is absurd. But Elena is desperate. And desperate people entertain absurd ideas. She pulls into a parking spot 2 blocks later, sits with her hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. What does she have to lose? Every credentialed expert has failed. Maybe the answer isn't credentials. Maybe it's something else entirely. She turns the car around. Elena finds Rosa still at her post at 3:30 p.m., supervising the afternoon school dismissal. She parks and approaches hesitantly, suddenly unsure how to begin this conversation. Excuse me, signora. Rosa turns, her weathered face kind and curious. Yes, de. Are you lost? No, my name is Elena Rossi. I work for the Castellani family. Alessandro Castellani. Do you know? The Villa Monteverde, Rosa says immediately. Of course. The wine empire. I've lived here all my life. Everyone knows the Castellanis. Though I hear Signor Alessandro is very ill. I pray for him. She crosses herself. Is he your employer? Yes. And Signora, his dying. I'm his personal assistant, and I need help. I know this will sound strange. but I was sitting in traffic and I watched you with the children, and then with that woman who was upset, and I thought. Elena's voice cracks. I thought maybe you could help. Rosa's eyebrows rise. Help with what, dear? Elena takes a breath and explains everything. The 20-year estrangement. The 3 siblings scattered across the world. The 17 experts who failed. The millions spent. The dying patriarch's final wish. As she talks, Rosa listens with absolute attention, the same attention she's given to every child, every parent, every story at this crosswalk for 4 decades. When Elena finishes, Rosa is quiet for a long moment. Then she says gently, "And you think I can help? Elena, may I call you Elena? I'm a crossing guard. I help children cross the street. I don't have any fancy degrees or training." "But you helped that woman," Elena says urgently. "In 90 seconds, I watched you change her entire demeanor. I've spent €2 million on experts who couldn't do that in months. Please. I know it sounds crazy, but you're my last hope. Will you try? Will you meet with Signor Alessandro, hear the full story, see if there's anything you can suggest?" Rosa looks at this desperate young woman, sees the sleepless nights written on her face, the tremor in her hands. She thinks of Alessandro Castellani, dying alone in his villa, surrounded by wealth that can't buy the only thing he wants. She thinks of her crossing guard wisdom. People fight hardest when they are hurting. Silence is usually fear wearing a mask. The way back to each other lies through shared memory. "I don't promise anything," Rosa says finally. "But yes, I'll come. I'll listen. Maybe I can help, maybe not." Elena nearly collapses with relief. "Thank you. Oh God, thank you. When can you come?" "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow is Thursday. I have my post until 4 o'clock. But I can come after that." The next day, Elena picks up Rosa at the crosswalk at 4:15 p.m. The drive to Villa Monteverde takes 20 minutes, and Rosa spends it gazing out the window at the countryside she's known all her life but rarely traveled through. When the villa appears on its hilltop, Rosa whistles low. Madonna. That's a house. Inside, the vast rooms and priceless art make Rosa feel small, but she straightens her worn cardigan and follows Elena up the marble staircase to Alessandro's bedroom. The old man lies against his pillows, diminished but still commanding. His eyes sharpen when he sees Rosa. "Alessandro," Elena says softly, "this is Rosa Benedetti. She's from Montalcino. She's agreed to help." Alessandro studies Rosa, her simple clothes, her weathered hands, her kind face. He's built an empire by reading people, and what he reads in Rosa Benedetti is authenticity so pure it's almost holy. "Signora," he says in a rasping voice, "Elena has told me about you. Though I confess I don't understand what you think you can do that all the others couldn't." Rosa approaches the bed, takes the chair beside it. "Signor Castellani, I probably can't do anything. But let me ask you something. All these experts, these therapists and mediators and specialists, what did they do? They tried to contact my children. They sent letters, made phone calls, crafted proposals. Did any of them actually know your children?" Alessandro blinks. "What do you mean?" "I mean, did they know Marco loves sailing but gets seasick? Did they know Julia sleeps with a childhood stuffed rabbit even though she's 4 to 6? Did they know Tommaso can fix any engine just by listening to it run?" Alessandro's eyes widen. "How do you know these things?" "I don't," Rosa says simply. "I'm guessing. Because I know children. And I know that after 43 years of watching families, the problem is never what people think it is. You say your children are estranged over a misunderstanding about property. But that's not really it, is it?" Alessandro's jaw trembles. "What do you think it is?" Rosa leans forward. "I think your children blamed each other because blaming each other was easier than facing their grief over losing their mother. I think the property dispute was just the match, but the fire was already built from loss and fear. I think they've stayed apart not because they hate each other, but because coming back would mean admitting they've wasted 20 years, and that admission is terrifying. Am I close?" Tears stream down Alessandro's weathered cheeks. "Yes," he whispers. "But how do we fix it? They won't take calls. They won't read letters. They've built walls so high. Then we don't go through the walls, Rosa says. We go around them. Tell me everything. Not about the property dispute. I don't care about that. Tell me about your children when they were young. Tell me about your wife. Tell me about the good times before everything broke. For the next 3 hours, as sunset paints the villa gold, Alessandro talks. He tells Rosa about Marco's 6th birthday party when he insisted everyone dress as pirates. About Giulia's phase at age 12 when she decided to become a veterinarian and brought home every injured animal she found. About Tommaso's spending entire summers in his grandfather's workshop, covered in grease, happy as a prince. He talks about his late wife, Caterina, her laugh that sounded like music, the way she'd leave notes in their lunch boxes every single day, even after they were teenagers. Rosa listens, truly listens, filing away every detail. And slowly, a picture emerges. Not of 3 hardened adults nursing grudges, but of 3 deeply wounded children who loved each other fiercely and lost their way in grief. Tell me about the last good day, Rosa says finally. Before Caterina died. The last time you were all together and happy. Alessandro closes his eyes, reaching back. It was her birthday. June 15th, 2004. We all went to Portofino, to the house there. Caterina loved that house. We sailed in the morning. Marco actually didn't get sick for once. The sea was calm as glass. Giulia made lunch, this disastrous pasta that was somehow both burned and undercooked. We laughed until we cried. Tommaso fixed the boat motor when it died coming back. He was only 21 but better than any mechanic. We ate dinner on the terrace, watching the sun set. Caterina said. His voice breaks. She said, "This is perfect. Remember this. Promise me you'll always remember this day." Rosa sits back, her mind working. After a long moment, she says, "I know what to do, but it will be hard, and I'll need you to trust me. I'll do anything. First, stop trying to contact them. Stop the letters, the calls, all of it. They've learned to deflect those. We need them off balance. But how? Second, I need you to write letters. 3 letters, 1 for each child. But not the letters you've been writing, begging them to come home. These letters are different. In each one, you tell a story about a specific memory with that child. Just one memory, told in detail. The kind of detail that proves you remember, that shows the memory matters. Marco's pirate party. Giulia's injured animals. Tommaso's first engine repair. Don't ask them for anything. Just share the memory. End each letter with, "I wanted you to know I've never forgotten." That's all. Alessandro nods slowly. And then we wait. Not for responses. We wait and send more letters. 1 per week. Each one a different memory. We're not asking them to come home. We're just reminding them of who they were before the pain. We're showing them it's possible to remember without drowning. Elena, who's been standing silently in the doorway, speaks up. But what if they don't respond? He doesn't have much time. Rosa turns to her with gentle eyes. Elena, all those experts tried to force reconciliation. Force doesn't work with humans, only with machines. What we're doing is planting seeds. Some will grow fast, some slow, but you can't force a seed to become a tree. You can only create conditions for growth and trust the nature of things. Over the next week, Rosa visits every evening. She helps Alessandro write the letters, guiding him to remember details he thought he'd forgotten. The letters are handwritten, on simple paper, nothing fancy. Just a father remembering his children. They mail the first 3 letters on October 12th. No response comes. They send the second round on October 19th. Still nothing. By November 1st, Alessandro is noticeably weaker. Dr. Moretti has stopped giving time frames. Elena is frantic. "It's not working," she tells Rosa. "We've sent 6 letters. Nothing." But Rosa is unworried. Seeds don't shout when they are germinating. Roots grow in darkness. Trust the process. On November 3rd, Alessandro's phone rings at 11 p.m. Elena answers, her heart hammering. A man's voice, American accent, hesitant. This is Marco Castellani. I received some letters. Is my father really dying? Elena's knees buckle. She manages to say yes, to explain his condition, to answer Marco's trembling questions. Before hanging up, Marco says quietly, "The pirate party letter. I haven't thought about that day in 20 years. But when I read it, I could smell the cake, hear my mother's laugh. I need to think. But tell him I'm thinking." On November 7th, a package arrives from Congo. Inside is a photo, old, creased, of a young Julia holding a three-legged dog, grinning at the camera. A note in shaky handwriting reads, "You remember. I thought you'd forgotten. I thought I was the only one who remembered." On November 10th, a rough call comes from Australia at 4 a.m. Tommaso, his voice thick with accent and emotion. The letter's about the boat motor, about Grandpa's workshop. That's who I was. I forgot who I was. I'm trying to remember. Rosa sits with Alessandro as he weeps with joy and terror. They are responding, he says. But will they come? We're not asking them to come, Rosa reminds him gently. We're just reminding them they are loved. Keep writing. Keep remembering. The rest will happen when it's ready. More letters flow. Alessandro's handwriting grows shakier, but the memories grow richer. Marco sends an email about a business crisis he's facing, asking his father's advice. The first time he's reached out in 20 years. Julia calls twice, brief conversations, her walls still high but cracking. Tommaso sends photos of himself on the cattle station, says he's thinking about visiting Italy next year, maybe. It's not reconciliation yet, but it's the opposite of silence. On November 18th, Dr. Moretti tells Elena privately that Alessandro has days left, maybe less. His heart is failing rapidly. Elena finds Rosa at her crosswalk the next morning, pulls her aside. He's dying. The children are responding, but they are not here. What do we do? Rosa is quiet for a long moment. Then, it's time. Call them. All three. Tell them their father's dying. Tell them he wants to tell them one more story, but he can only tell it once, and he can only tell it if they are all there. He needs all three of his children to hear this story. It's about their mother's last birthday. The perfect day. What if they won't come? They'll come. We've reminded them who they were. Now we give them permission to come home. Sometimes people just need permission. Elena makes the calls that afternoon. Each sibling is silent when she mentions the story about their mother's last birthday. Each says they need to think. Each calls back within 2 hours. Marco, I'm booking a flight tonight. Julia, I'm leaving Kinshasa in the morning. Tommaso, I'll be there. I'll be there. November 21st dawns cold and clear over Villa Monteverde. Inside, the household thrums with anxious energy. The siblings are coming. After 20 years, they are coming. But will they actually reconcile, or will it be 3 separate deathbed visits, still not speaking to each other? Elena hasn't slept in 2 days. She's terrified this will somehow go wrong, that they'll arrive and the old wounds will tear open fresh, that Alessandro will die having seen them but not seen them together. Rosa arrives at 10 a.m., though no one asked her to come. I need to be here, she tells Elena simply. This is my crossing too. Marco's car appears first at 2 p.m. He steps out, a tall, lean man in an expensive suit, his face carved with stress and success. He looks up at the villa where he grew up and his face crumples. He stands frozen by the car for 5 full minutes before Elena approaches, touches his shoulder. He's waiting for you, she says gently. Marco nods, can't speak, follows her inside. Julia arrives at 3:30, coming straight from the airport, her humanitarian worker's efficiency cracking as she enters the driveway. She's tanned, thin, her hair shorter than in old photos. She sees Marco's rental car and stops dead. Is he here? She whispers to Elena. Yes. In the library. Not with your father yet. Julia nods shakily, goes to the opposite side of the villa. Tommaso's truck rumbles up at 4:45, a battered thing covered in red Australian dust. He unfolds from the driver's seat, massive, sunburned, calloused hands, beard streaked with grey. He looks like he's spent 20 years working with his hands instead of his heritage. He sees his siblings' vehicles and has to sit down on the front steps, head in his hands, breathing hard. Rosa finds him there 10 minutes later. She sits beside him on the steps, this elderly crossing guard and the prodigal son. "You came," she says quietly. "I don't know if I can go in," Tommaso admits. 20 years. 20 fucking years. What do I even say to them? "You don't have to say anything yet. Your father wants to tell you a story. That's all. Can you listen to a story?" Tommaso looks at this small woman he's never met but who somehow orchestrated this impossible moment. "Who are you?" "I'm Rosa. I help people cross from one place to another. That's all I do. Can you cross this threshold, Tommaso?" He stands shakily. Rosa takes his massive, work-roughened hand in her small, weathered one. "Come. I'll cross with you." By 5 p.m., all three siblings are in the villa, but in different rooms. Marco in the library, staring at bookshelves that hold his childhood. Giulia in the kitchen, gripping a cup of untouched tea. Tommaso in the garage, mechanically examining his father's cars, his hands needing something to do. Rosa finds Elena in the hallway. It's time. Bring them to Alessandro. Together. But they haven't spoken to each other. They don't need to speak. They need to listen. Trust me. Elena nods, though her hands shake as she gathers the siblings. First Marco from the library. He's crying silently, wiping his eyes on his expensive suit sleeve. Then Giulia from the kitchen. She stiffens when she sees Marco, opens her mouth, closes it, says nothing. Finally Tommaso from the garage. He stops when he sees his siblings, and for a long moment the three stand frozen, looking at each other across 20 years of silence. They've all aged. Marco's temples are gray. Giulia's eyes have seen too much suffering. Tommaso's hands are scarred and permanent tan lines mark where work gloves end. They are strangers wearing familiar faces. "Your father is waiting," Elena says gently. "He has a story to tell you. All of you, together." They climb the stairs in silence, a funeral procession of the living. Elena opens Alessandro's bedroom door. The old man is propped against his pillows, oxygen tubes in his nose, looking impossibly fragile. But when he sees his three children enter together, for the first time in 20 years, his face transforms. "Miei figli," he breathes. "My children." The siblings arrange themselves around the bed, not close to each other, but present. Rosa slips in last, unnoticed, standing by the door. Alessandro looks at each of them, his eyes drinking them in. "Thank you for coming. I know it was hard. I know we've lost so much time. But before we talk about any of that, I want to tell you a story. About your mother's last birthday. June 15th, 2004. Do you remember?" Marco, Giulia, and Tommaso exchange glances. The first direct eye contact in 2 decades, and nod. Alessandro's voice strengthens as he begins, as if memory is medicine. He tells them about the morning sail, the calm sea, Marco actually keeping his breakfast down for once. Marco's mouth twitches in an almost smile. Alessandro describes Giulia's disastrous pasta, and despite herself, Giulia lets out a choked laugh. He talks about the boat motor dying and Tommaso fixing it with nothing but wire and intuition, and Tommaso's eyes fill with tears. "Your mother said something that day," Alessandro continues. "She said, 'This is perfect. Remember this. Promise me you'll always remember this day.' We all promised. Do you remember promising?" Slowly, one by one, they nod. "I've kept that promise," Alessandro says, his voice breaking. "Every day for 22 years, I've remembered that day. Even when we stopped speaking. Even when I was angry and hurt. Even when I thought I'd lost you forever. I remembered that day, and I remembered who we were then. A family. Imperfect, yes, but a family. Who loved each other." The silence in the room is thick with emotion. "I'm dying," Alessandro says simply. "You all know this. And I won't ask you to forgive each other. I won't ask you to forget 20 years. That's not possible and it's not fair. But I'm asking you, as I'm dying, to remember one thing. Before the pain, before the misunderstanding, before the pride and the silence, we were a family who had a perfect day. That truth is as real as anything that came after. Please, please don't forget that. Marco breaks first. A sob escapes him, and he drops to his knees beside the bed, gripping his father's hand. Papa, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. For everything. Julia collapses into the chair on the other side, tears streaming. Papa, I never stopped loving you. I never stopped missing you all. I was just too afraid, too hurt. Tommaso stands frozen, his massive frame shaking with silent sobs. I ran away. I ran away like a coward. I should have stayed. I should have tried. No, Alessandro interrupts firmly. No more apologies. Not now. Right now, I just want you here. Together. Can you do that? Can you just be here, together, for a little while? They nod through their tears. And then something shifts in the room, some invisible membrane breaking. Marco looks across the bed at Julia and says, her voice raw, "You look tired." Julia gives a wet laugh. "You look old." "We all look old," Tommaso says from his position at the foot of the bed. And just like that, the ice cracks. Not breaking, not shattering, just cracking, letting warmth seep through. They start talking. Hesitantly at first, then faster. Marco mentions his company. Julia talks about her work in Congo. Tommaso describes the Australian outback. They are dancing around the real conversation, the real reconciliation, but they are talking. After 20 years of silence, they are talking. Alessandro listens, his eyes moving from child to child, something like peace settling over his features. In the doorway, Rosa watches with satisfaction. This is the moment. This is the crossing. As evening deepens, Dr. Moretti arrives for his daily check, stops in the doorway, and stares. Elena intercepts him, whispers that the children came, that they are together. Dr. Moretti, who has seen many deathbed scenes in his 40 years of practice, has never seen one quite like this. Around 8 p.m., someone orders pizza. They eat it in Alessandro's room, sitting on the floor, the bed, the chairs, wherever they can fit. Tommaso tells a story about a drunk kangaroo. Marco describes his daughter, Alessandro's granddaughter he's never met. Julia shows photos on her phone of a school she helped build. They are not reconciled. Not yet. There are still things unsaid, wounds unhealed, apologies owed and forgiveness needed. But they are together, in the same room, speaking, remembering. And that's the miracle. At 10 p.m., Alessandro's eyes start to close. He's exhausted but radiant. "Stay tonight," he whispers. "All of you. Please." "We're not going anywhere, Papa," Julia says, and her brothers nod. As Alessandro drifts to sleep, his 3 children sit together in the room, and finally, they turn to each other. "I've missed you," Marco says simply. "I've missed you too," Julia whispers. "I've missed both of you every single day," Tommaso adds. They talk through the night. Not about the property dispute. No one even mentions it. They talk about the years lost, the pain carried, the lives lived separately. They cry. They laugh. They rage at the waste of it all. And slowly, they begin to forgive themselves, each other, the universe that let them fracture. Dawn breaks through the villa windows, painting the room gold. Alessandro wakes to find his 3 children asleep in his room, Marco in the chair, Julia curled on the window seat, Tommaso sprawled on the floor. He lies there, watching them, and the smile on his face is the smile of a man who has gotten his last wish. Alessandro doesn't die that day, or the next, or the week after that. Dr. Moretti, when he examines him 5 days later, is stunned. "His heart shouldn't be stronger," he mutters. "The tests show improvement. It's not medically possible, but..." What Dr. Moretti doesn't understand is that Alessandro's heart was never the problem. The grief was. And with his children home, sleeping in their old rooms, eating meals together, slowly rebuilding what was lost, the grief begins to heal. With it, impossibly, some of his physical strength returns. It's not a permanent reversal. He's still dying, still has weeks rather than years. But those weeks are a gift no one expected. The siblings stay. Marco sets up a remote office in his childhood bedroom. Giulia arranges a sabbatical from her organization. Tommaso calls his station manager in Australia, says he needs time, might not be back. They begin the real work of reconciliation. It's messy, hard, painful. There are arguments. There are slammed doors. There are tears and accusations and all the ugly, necessary work of healing. But they are doing it together. And that makes all the difference. Through it all, Rosa continues to visit. She doesn't stay long. She has her crossing guard duties, but she comes each evening, and the family has adopted her as an honorary aunt. She sits with Alessandro, sharing simple wisdom from her decades at the crosswalk. She mediates when the siblings hit rough patches, not with fancy techniques, just with questions that cut through to truth. 2 weeks after the reunion, Elena finds Rosa in the villa's garden and kneels in front of her. "You saved them. You saved this family. How can we ever repay you?" Rosa looks uncomfortable. "I didn't save anyone. They saved themselves. I just helped them cross. Let us give you something. Money. A house. Anything." Rosa shakes her head firmly. "No, dear. I have everything I need. But you live in a tiny apartment. You work for a pension that's barely." "Elena," Rosa interrupts gently, "I'm rich. Maybe not in money, but in the ways that matter. I have my children at the crosswalk. I have my neighbors. I have my church. I have purpose. What would I do with a big house? It would just be empty." She pauses, then adds, "But there is something you could do. Not for me. For others. Anything. Alessandro's fortune. When he passes, instead of fighting over it, what if the children used some of it to create scholarships? For kids in small towns like Montalcino who want education but can't afford it. Kids who have wisdom but not opportunity. That would honor their father. That would honor their mother. That would be a legacy." Elena stares at Rosa, then starts crying again. "You're remarkable. You know that." Rosa pats her hand. "I'm a crossing guard who pays attention. That's all." That evening, Elena mentions Rosa's suggestion to the siblings. They look at each other and immediately agree. "We'll call it the Caterina Castellani Memorial Scholarship," Marco says, "for students from small towns. And we'll ask Rosa to help select the recipients," Giulia adds. "She knows better than anyone which kids have potential." "We'll start with €1,000,000, Tommaso suggests. "Then add more each year." When they tell Rosa the next day, she cries, the first time any of them have seen her cry. "You honor me too much," she whispers. "We honor you exactly right," Alessandro says firmly. He's sitting up in bed now, color in his cheeks, more alive than he's been in months. "Rosa, you gave me back my children. You gave them back to each other. You gave us time we didn't have. There's no way to repay that. But this scholarship will help hundreds of children, 4 generations. That seems like something you'd want." Rosa wipes her eyes, nods. Yes, I'd want that very much." The weeks pass. Alessandro grows weaker again, but peacefully, surrounded by love. He lives to see Marco's daughter, 10-year-old Sofia, who flies in from New York. He watches his 3 children laugh together at dinner. He witnesses Giulia and Marco hug spontaneously, Tommaso and Giulia working side by side in their mother's garden, Marco and Tommaso fixing a car engine together. He lives to see the first draft of the scholarship program. Lives to approve the criteria Rosa suggests. Lives to know that his wealth will create opportunity for children who might otherwise never have it. On December 15th, exactly 1 month after his children reunited, Alessandro Castellani dies peacefully in his sleep, his 3 children around him, holding his hands. His last words, whispered to Rosa during her evening visit, "Thank you, for helping them cross back home." The funeral is held 5 days later at the small church in Montalcino, Alessandro's request. He didn't want the Grand Milan Cathedral where Caterina's funeral was held. He wanted the simple church in the village where Rosa prays, where real life happens. The church is packed. The entire town comes to pay respects, though most never met Alessandro. They come for Rosa, who they've learned made this miracle happen. They come because this story has become legend already, the crossing guard who reunited the Castellani family when the world's experts failed. At the reception after, the siblings find Rosa in a quiet corner. They sit with her, these three powerful, accomplished people and this humble crossing guard. What will you do now? Marco asks her. You could come to New York. I could set you up in a beautiful apartment, make sure you never want for anything. You could come to Milan, Giulia offers. Help with my organization. Your wisdom could help families all over the world. Or Australia, Tommaso says. I'm moving back to Italy, but there's always space. Rosa laughs, holds up her hands. No, no. Thank you, but no. I have my crossing. My children at school. My neighbors. My town. I have my life, and I'm happy in it. But you could do so much more, Marco protests. With your gift. I am doing what I'm meant to do, Rosa says gently. Not everyone's purpose is big and flashy. Mine is small and daily. I help children cross the street safely. I pay attention to my neighbors. I tend the church garden. I listen when people need to talk. That's my calling. It's enough. More than enough. Giulia wipes tears. You're the wisest person I've ever met. Rosa smiles. I've had 43 years to practice paying attention. That's all wisdom is, really. Paying attention. Caring enough to really see people. Before they leave, each sibling hugs her. 3 embraces from 3 people she barely knew a month ago but helped save. As they pull away, Marco says, We're family now, you know. You're part of us. Forever. Rosa nods, her eyes wet. I know. And you're part of me too. That's how families work. Not just blood, but choice. You chose to come home. You chose to forgive. You chose each other. That's the bravest thing humans can do. 6 months later, Rosa stands at her crosswalk on a warm June morning. It's exactly 23 years since Caterina Castellani's last birthday. Rosa thinks about this as she helps the Moretti twins cross. They are 8 now, not so different from Marco, Giulia, and Tommaso in the old photos. A sleek black car pulls up, and Marco emerges, now a regular visitor to Montalcino. He's moving some of his company operations to Tuscany, wants to be closer to his siblings. Sofia, his daughter, tumbles out after him, runs to Rosa for a hug. Zia Rosa. Sofia squeals, Aunt Rosa, though they share no blood. Papa brought me to see you. Rosa hugs the child, then looks at Marco with questioning eyes. He grins. The first scholarship recipients have been selected. 20 students from small towns across Italy. We wanted you to be the first to know. The announcement is next week. Rosa's hand flies to her mouth. 20. We started with €1,000,000, but Giulia convinced us to triple it for the first year. These kids, Rosa, some of them are just like you described. No resources, but brilliant, creative, wise beyond their years. They'll get full rides to university, mentorship, everything they need. Sofia tugs Rosa's sleeve. And Papa says when I'm older, I can help pick the students too. Just like you. Rosa kneels to the child's level, cups her face. You'll be good at it. You have your father's heart and your grandfather's wisdom. You pay attention. I can tell. As Marco and Sofia drive away, Father Giuseppe approaches. Rosa, did you hear? The Alberti siblings, the ones you helped reconcile last year, they are both here, attending their father's birthday party. Together. Happy. They told me to thank you. Rosa smiles. I didn't do anything special, Giuseppe. I just helped them remember who they were before the pain. That's everything, Rosa. That's the whole key. People spend fortunes on therapy, on experts, on complicated solutions. But sometimes the answer is just, remember who you were before you were hurt. Remember love existed before pain. Remember you chose each other once. You can choose each other again. Rosa nods, watches another group of children approach her crosswalk. As she raises her stop sign, she thinks about this truth she's learned over 43 years. The most profound solutions are often the simplest. Not easy. Simple and easy are different things. But simple in the way that roots and seeds are simple. Plant the right seed, create the right conditions, Trust the natural process of growth. The Castellani siblings didn't need force. They needed permission. Permission to remember. Permission to grieve. Permission to come home. Every family Rosa has ever helped needed the same thing. Permission to be human. To be messy and hurt and still worthy of love. To have wasted time and still deserve another chance. That evening, she receives a phone call. It's a lawyer in Rome, representing a wealthy family whose adult children haven't spoken in 15 years. They've heard about Rosa, the crossing guard who reunited the Castellanis. They are offering €50,000 for her help. Rosa listens patiently, then says gently, "I appreciate the offer, but I can't take your money. However, if you'd like to come to Montalcino next Thursday after 4 o'clock, I'll talk with you. For free. I can't promise anything, but I'll listen." Sometimes that's all people need, someone who really listens. The lawyer sounds stunned but agrees. As Rosa hangs up, she thinks about Alessandro, dying peacefully surrounded by love. She thinks about Marco, Giulia, and Tommaso, rebuilding their relationships day by day. She thinks about the 20 students who'll get educations they couldn't otherwise afford. She thinks about all the families she's helped over the years, the children at her crosswalk, the neighbors she knows by name. This is her legacy. Not wealth or fame or credentials. Just presence, attention, care, the willingness to help people cross from one place to another, whether that's a street or a chasm of grief. She is a crossing guard. And that, she thinks as she locks her apartment door and prepares for bed, is exactly enough. What an incredible story. From a desperate billionaire's deathbed wish to a simple crossing guard's wisdom, we've witnessed the power of paying attention, of remembering love before pain, of giving people permission to come home. Rosa Benedetti didn't have degrees or credentials. She had 43 years of standing at a crosswalk, watching families, learning what works and what doesn't, understanding that the simplest solutions are often the most profound. While experts with million-dollar fees failed, she succeeded, not because she was smarter, but because she saw what they couldn't, that people don't need to be fixed. They need to be reminded of who they were before they broke. The lesson of the Crossing Guards Council is this: wisdom doesn't require credentials. The greatest solutions come from unexpected places. Pride prevents us from seeing what humility reveals. And the way back to each other always lies through shared memory and love. We live in a world that values expertise, that assumes the most expensive answer must be the best answer, that overlooks the quiet wisdom of ordinary people doing ordinary work with extraordinary attention. Rosa Benedetti reminds us that the person at the crosswalk, at the grocery checkout, at the bus stop, the person we pass without really seeing, they might be the one with the answer we desperately need. Remember at the beginning when we asked what this crossing guard knew that 17 experts missed. Now we know. She knew that silence is usually fear wearing a mask. That distance comes not from hate but from pain pretending to be hate. That the way back to each other is paved with shared memories, not forced apologies. That people need permission to come home, not pressure. 3 decades of standing at one crosswalk taught Rosa more about human nature than any textbook could. Because she paid attention. Because she cared enough to really see people. Because she understood that her small daily work, helping children cross safely, was preparing her for bigger crossings she couldn't predict. The former crossing guard now serves on the board of the Caterina Castellani Memorial Scholarship Fund, but she still works her post every morning. Because that's where she belongs. That's where she can pay attention, listen, notice when someone needs help crossing from one place to another. She understands that the biggest impact often comes from the smallest consistent actions. If this story moved you, inspired you, or taught you something, please subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button. And in the comments, tell us, what lesson did you learn from the Crossing Guards Council? Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever underestimated someone else? Where in your life could you pay better attention? Who in your daily routine might have wisdom you're overlooking? Share your story below. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next inspiring story. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who's been underestimated, someone who's given up hope, someone who's forgotten that the answers sometimes come from the most unexpected places. Remember, the next person you meet might be the hero of someone else's impossible story. The quiet person doing humble work might be carrying profound wisdom. The simplest answer might be the one you need most. Don't judge by appearances. Don't assume credentials equal wisdom. Pay attention. Really see people. And remember that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, and some of them have already won battles that could teach you how to win yours. See you in the next one.